Well, hello, Paul. You're either very, very short or I think that's the best introduction ever for a guest, Paul. I really do. Paul, unfortunately, for some reason, Paul needed Chrome on a laptop to do the show, and he's got his iPad right now. So Paul is going to be even more entertaining than we expected tonight. I love this. Hey, folks, how you doing? I'm Walter, your independent travel advisor with Where's Walter Travel. And every Thursday night, we try to bring you our travel partners or interesting travel stories for about an hour. Tonight, we're very honored and very thankful to have this amazing man, Mr. Paul C. Thornton, who is an author of the Joy of Cruising series and also a podcast host of a series of the same name. Paul, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Walter, I am glad to be here, and thank you for that introduction. The check is in the mail.
I love it. And folks, as always, if you have any questions that you'd like to drop in here, Paul has literally interviewed a who's who of people behind the scenes in cruising, those of us who like to cruise, those of us who sell cruising. And I'm just so very fortunate to have on. You can see his books there on the screen, along with the Joy of Cruising podcast. I highly recommend that you subscribe to the podcast. It's a lot of fun. You never know who you're going to hear on there, and I have enjoyed it. Hey, Michael, Becky, Sue, CJ. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And again, if you got any questions for Paul or myself, feel free to jump in. But Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit like, who were you before you became an author of The Joy of Cruising?
Okay, well, let's see. I've had a number of careers. I really have, mostly in, I don't know if it's mostly anymore, but I started off in corporate, big corporate. I went to the Army at 17, and
Wow.
while I was in the Army, I earned my bachelor's degree. So I got out of the Army in February, and my bachelor's degree was done in March.
Wow.
And so so I immediately, I was self-conscious about the fact that I got my bachelor's degree while I was active duty in the Army, and in only 3 years. And I said, is that really a rigorous degree? So I went and got an MBA.
Wow.
To see if I really had it. And I guess I did. I guess I did, because that led to 17 years in the corporate sector.
Wow.
Big corporate. I worked for a Fortune 10 company at the time, and after 17 years, I always had the entrepreneurial bug, so I left to become an entrepreneur.
Wow.
I owned video stores. Remember them?
What? You own video stores? Wow.
Yeah, I owned a chain of video stores, and I owned dollar store,
Wow.
and an arts and gift shop. So yeah, I was in retail. I played around a lot in small retail, and then I started teaching at colleges to kind of supplement my income once I moved into small business, because I left a very secure situation and a lot of benefits and salary. So I started teaching and fell in love with teaching. I eventually got hired full-time as a college professor, and I did that for 9 years, and then I moved into administration. At the higher ed level, and I retired from higher ed a couple of years ago.
Wow.
But the way I got into I've always loved cruising. I've been cruising since 1988.
Wow.
But I became a cruising content creator, I guess you would call me, when I wrote my first cruising book, which I think is on the screen, The Joy of
It
Cruising.
is.
But it wasn't my first book, by the way. I had written a book before that, and it was a memoir, and that was not, you know, it was not my intention to write a book. When I
Okay.
woke up on, I guess it was December 6, 2014, I had absolutely no intention to write a book. And when I went to bed that night, I was well into my first book. So you might say, well, how did that happen? What happened on December 6, 2014? My daughter got married.
Oh, wow.
And, and so, she had been hounding me for a couple of months, not hounding me, reminding me for a couple of months that I needed to give a talk at the wedding. And I didn't like public speaking, even though I did it a lot in the work world. And I said, well, what am I going to talk about? And she said, well, talk about memories of me growing up. And so I did, and I did your normal daddy-daughter stuff, talked about the first trip to Disney, proms,
Nice.
first boyfriend, high school sports, your standard stuff.
Wow.
But the most powerful memory of all that I had of my daughter Keena growing up, you know, the talk wouldn't have been authentic if I didn't include that memory. And
Yeah.
so I did. And when she was 6 years old, uh, uh, I became very ill. I was
Oh,
29 years old,
oh, wow.
and so I had a major operation, brain operation, 12 hours.
Wow.
Um, and there were some consequences, some permanent, uh,
Hmm.
significant and permanent, and some temporary. And one of the temporary ones was I had to relearn how to walk.
Oh,
So
wow.
so so at 6 years old, every day my daughter would grab my hand and I'd have my cane in the other hand, and we would walk my mom's neighborhood. I was
Oh,
convalescing at where my mom lives in New York, in Brooklyn. I'm sorry,
oh.
Long Island. And
Okay.
so that was clearly, obviously, the most powerful memory I had of my daughter. So I said that in the wedding, but I couldn't just say that without giving any context. And most of the people in the room didn't know my history. Some did,
Yeah.
my relatives did. And so I
Yeah.
gave some context, and and what I found myself doing was sharing things that I had never shared in 30 years. And
Hmm.
I found that the more I shared, the better I felt. It
Oh,
was
wow.
kind of liberating. And so when I finished talking, as they say in Hollywood, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Uh, and so I rushed back to my hotel and I started writing my memoir because I wanted to recapture the feeling that I had in that room. And so that was the birth of my first book.
Wow.
And again,
Wow.
obviously, nothing to do with cruising. It told the
Wow.
story of how I got sick at 29 and I almost died, and it was very interesting. It was very dramatic, but then
Wow.
there were times that it was very funny, and I won an award, uh, uh,
Oh, wow.
a very, very prestigious award, uh, for the book. So that's how my
Okay.
writing career started. Um,
Wow.
and
Powerful.
I love that. I love the process of writing, and I was pretty passionate about cruising, and so I came up with the idea to write this book called The Joy of Cruising.
That is phenomenal. What a story, Paul. I had no, folks, I had no idea. Paul and I barely had time to talk before this. That's a powerful story, Paul. And what a memory of your daughter basically helping you learn how to walk again. That's
Yep,
phenomenal.
yep.
That's phenomenal. So you said way back in the beginning of a lot of that, your first cruise was 1988. And I know we're all sitting here going, okay, what was that first cruise?
Sovereign of the Seas. So
Wow.
for anyone who knows the cruising history, Sovereign of the Sea, it's Royal Caribbean, of course. It's
Mhm.
considered the first megaship.
Is it really? Oh,
Yes, yes,
wow.
it was significantly larger than any other ship at the time.
Okay.
Today,
Okay.
though, today Sovereign of the Seas would fit in the promenade of most cruise ships.
Christy's actually asking, what was that first book called?
Uh, Now, this is going to shock a lot of people because it was very provocatively titled uh, "White Man's Disease." So
Oh,
when
wow.
so when you hear that title, you think the book is about race, and it has absolutely nothing to do about race, other than it was written by a black man in America. So inevitably, it's going to touch on some issues.
Sure.
But why it's called white man's disease? I actually, in the very first paragraph, literally the first paragraph, um, I use that phrase, or not. I use that phrase. I quote where I
Gotcha.
first heard the phrase. I first heard the phrase
Wow.
on television. It was said by a white sports commentator.
Okay.
Some of your boomers might even remember him. His name was Don Criqui,
Oh, my
and
gosh.
and he said it in the context of a sports telecast.
Oh,
And
wow.
I almost fell out of my chair, Walter, because this was the 70s. Um,
Wow.
so that's where I first heard the term. Why the book was titled that is an interesting story. It's kind of an inside joke. So I don't want to give that away.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll have to read the book, is what you're saying.
That's There you go. There you go.
Christy, you're going to have to read the book, is what he's saying.
By the way, you can get the ebook is available on Amazon.
Yep.
The hard copy you can get directly from me, and it would be autographed, and it's
Nice.
available at whitemansdisease.com.
There you go. And I did realize that as we were coming on the air, the links are not in there yet, folks. I will have all the links in there after the show, but you can find Paul's books at Amazon. You can go to thejoyofcruising.net, is it, Paul, or .com?
Yes. .net.
Joyofcruising.net to find all of his stuff. And of course, you got to subscribe to that podcast. You got to subscribe to that podcast. Hey, Betty, Aaron is here. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining in. Really appreciate you tuning in. If you just got here, we are talking to Paul C. Thornton. He is the author of the Joy of Cruising series and the host of the Joy of Cruising podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that wherever you find your favorite podcast, or just go to thejoyofcruising.net to listen in. I was listening to Cindy today talk about that Africa trip. Folks, you've got to listen to that episode. This woman has traveled. I mean, it's easier to say where she hasn't gone versus where she has gone, because it would take all day to tell you where she's been. But what a great show, Paul. I loved that show. That was fun.
Thank you.
You know, I want to start getting into some of these stories. Paul, we could literally spend about 20 hours right now talking about all of his stories, but I asked Paul to pull together 5 or 10, and he pulled together 10 interesting ones. And as we talk about them, I would love to hear a little bit about how you found these stories as well. So the first one, you just gave, I love these sentences you gave me. I told Paul, give me a sentence, and I'm like, okay. The first sentence is, I get to write about and interview an idol of mine as a teen. What
Yes.
is
So
this?
so this episode It's one of the early episodes in the podcast series, but it's called the legendary Manny Keough. So Manny Keough is he's a drummer.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, very good. He's on the screen. So he's a drummer. Uh, and when I started writing the book, when I met him, he was called music ambassador for Royal Caribbean Cruise Line.
Oh, wow.
Um, so now he's not full time anymore on cruise lines. So he gets around a little bit. So he was recently on Virgin actually. He told me a lot
Oh,
about Virgin, before I actually got a Virgin. So anyway, let me get back to the part about he was a teen idol of mine. Uh,
really?
so Manny is used to be the drummer for a group, and I know many of your listeners will know this group called Graham Central Station.
Oh my gosh.
And so
Wow.
I went to see Graham Central Station when I was like 18 years old,
Oh man.
maybe 19 by now. I was in the military. Is at the I think it was called the War Memorial Theater in Columbus, Georgia,
Oh my
and
goodness.
Graham Central Station. They were really funky, and they had a song called "The Jam." And on the jam, each one of them does an extended solo. And so
Yeah.
Manny was the drummer on the jam. I wish I could play it, but I guess I'd get in trouble if I played it. Uh, so anyway, that was Manny. By the
Wow.
way, he didn't only play for Graham Central Station. He has played for a veritable who's who. Uh,
Wow.
he toured with the Rolling Stones. Played percussion in their big European tour that I can't remember the name of it now, but
Wow.
it's in the book. Quincy Jones,
Oh,
um,
wow.
uh, and he
Wow.
won he won a Grammy
Oh,
uh,
wow.
playing the drums for Billy Preston. So
Wow.
before he joined Graham Central Station, he played for Billy Preston. So anyway, that's his background. Uh, the way I found him is a friend of mine is a musician. He plays the bass, well known in the Washington D.C. area, and he told me about Manny, and so he had the Royal Caribbean connection. That sounded like a great story, and so I reached out to him. Uh, and by the way, he looks very much the way he looks today. He's in his 70s now. But
Wow.
yeah, I have photos on the site, with him, a huge afro next to Billy Preston. And then I also have photos of him with Grand Central Station. So that's what I mean when I say I got to write about and interview a teen
Wow.
idol. And if you listen to that interview, he does a killer uh, uh, impression of Ray Charles. Uh, and he also does a little bit of the solo that he's known for in that one song, "The Jam." So,
Wow. How cool is that? I grew up idolizing Buddy Rich, so like I'm right in there with drummers. I wanted to be a drummer, but I just never got to it. So that's awesome,
mhm.
man. What a great story. What a great way, to meet your idol and then be able to talk about that. And he looks amazing in that photo. I just,
Mm.
looks like the kind of person you just want to hang out with, in the
Yep,
bar
yep.
for a little bit. Awesome. And folks, I'll remind you if you've got any questions for Paul, this is your chance to ask Paul questions. And Paul's usually on the other side asking us questions. This is your chance to ask him some questions as well about all things cruising. Now, the second
Well,
sentence. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, Walt, is my sound okay?
Yeah, your sound is fine. Everybody at home,
Okay,
does he sound all right? I think you sound all right. It's
okay.
it's a little bit of a echo, but it's you're talking into a box, but it's fine. I think it's great. We're
Yeah,
having
I'm
fun.
I'm using my iPad mic. I would normally with my podcast, I use the mic setup and all that, but as you know,
It's all
I
good.
had I had some technical difficulties.
And we always do. Don't worry about it. It's all good. So you're fine, and the stories are great, Paul. This is awesome. So the second person you want to talk to, I love this. I love this. I love this. If a definitive history of modern cruising is written, this is the one individual from the podcast who has to be in it. All right, Paul, who is this?
So Joe Farkas. Joe Farkas designed every Carnival ship from 1977 to 2011, 2012 or so. So,
Yeah.
and those ships, as you know, any of your any viewers who are Carnival cruisers, they've likely been on a Joe Farkas designed ship, and he his style is what he calls entertainment architecture,
Yeah.
and you know that you're on a Joe Farkas ship. By the way, I said he designed every Carnival ship from 77 to 2011, 2012. He also designed every Costa ship from
Oh,
about
wow.
2009 to 2014. He also had a big part in the Howe class, not the which
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the class. It's not their current largest class, but the class before that.
So the
And
Vista
he had
class.
yes, and he had a big role in the design of Cunard, Queen Mary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was he was not the designer of Cunard. That was being designed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the Mickey Harrison got a hold of him and said, you know, there's some issues, and I want you to go over there and
Yeah.
take a look. And so he was kind of a I don't know what you a fixer. You know, he kind of did some things, but he's not the primary designer. So
Right.
yeah, he is you know he's you know he would be in the who's who of
Sure.
cruise ship designers and people important to you know I mean who is more important to Carnival's brand of the fun ship
Yeah.
than Joe Farkas?
Right. Right. And he even designed a ship that was never built because they thought it was too big. And then a couple years later, Royal Caribbean suddenly came out with the Oasis class that's about the same size as the ship they never
Yeah,
built.
yeah,
So Carnival could have been first with the Oasis class. They just thought it was too big. They didn't think they were actually going to sell. And he had some crazy ideas on that thing, like a Willy Wonka elevator that went sideways. He had a lazy river on the side of it. Oh man, he had some. Because I actually did a story about it. That was actually, I mean, they could build that ship today and it would be successful.
yeah.
That would be amazing. But yeah, Joe Farkas, folks, when you go on a Joe Farkas ship, I mean, it's kind of like stepping into Las Vegas, is what it's kind of like doing,
Hmm.
like classic Vegas. They are really fun ship. Got a question from Aaron. This is kind of fun. We'll come back to the stories in a minute because I was listening to this podcast too. And boy, what a long cruise if you're not going to like the ship. But on the Transatlantic podcast, and folks, if you haven't heard that yet, Paul took his first Virgin voyage, and it happened to be a long transatlantic. But you mentioned a gentleman who was not happy about the cruise on day two. Did you ever find out how he liked the rest of the sailing?
No, not yet. However, we just literally just introduced a uh, capability where listeners can text me. I can't respond, but I can
Mm-hmm.
receive the text and I can acknowledge, you know, the text on the air, you know, or something like that. So I actually invited him to reach out to me.
Oh,
Um, So, but I haven't heard from her. I don't know if this new text ability is running into some technical issues or what, because
Everything new.
I'm not getting a lot of texts. But I would my guess is it didn't get any better. He seemed to
It didn't
have,
sound like it.
yeah, he seemed to have his mind set, and then
Yeah.
he said, I'm a Princess Holland America guy, and I like tradition and blah blah blah. I could just tell. Well, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hate to know that a person was on a ship for 14 days and hated it. So I'd love
Right.
to hear back from him, but I
Wow.
don't get the sense it got any better for him.
Gotcha. And hey, Stephanie is here. Hi, Steph. And she's saying that Joe Farkas sounds like the Joe Rohde of Carnival, the famous Disney Imagineer who built just about everything for a long time.
Oh, okay. Yep, yep.
He designed
Oh,
Animal Kingdom.
that's Steph.
That's Steph. It's
Hey,
Stephanie, one
Steph.
of your stories. Wow. Should we jump ahead to Steph and talk about Steph since she's here? Embarrass her while she's watching? And this is a great lead in. And I remember you and I talked about this actually when you were getting ready to talk to her. Paul said he has interviewed CEOs, TV stars, Grammy nominees, a Hall of Famer. You even had a conversation with Muhammad Ali. Yet, I was the most anxious leading up to this cruise personalities interview. I'll let you take it, Paul.
Yeah, it was Steph. Sean and Steph. I was very anxious because I didn't want to bring up any hurtful memories or say something insensitive. So I, for about the first minute, I was walking on eggshells. But within a couple of minutes, it's as if Steph and I were longtime friends. It was a great conversation, and if any of your viewers caught I did a show celebrating our first birthday, and it was a collection of sort of the most memorable and funniest and most embarrassing quotes from the first year. Uh,
Right?
for those who listen to that episode, Steph was the winner, if you will, of the funniest, most embarrassing moment. But
Mhm.
yeah, I was very nervous, anxious, leading up to our interview. But in retrospect, I mean, uh, Steph has grieved publicly. She has uh, progressed, where she is publicly, and she's been very public, and 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 I don't know why I was so anxious, but it was a great conversation. And like I said, that anxiety lasted all of about a minute.
And that is the magic of Stephanie. She makes you feel like you're her best friend within minutes of meeting her, and she's probably the strongest person I know, and one of my favorite people in the entire world. We're very proud to be friends with her and to support her, and we're proud to support you as well. But that was a great interview.
After I got off the call, I said, why was I so worried about that? That was great.
Oh man, and wait till you come on down here to Florida, and we all get together for coffee or dinner sometime. That'll be a lot of fun.
All
That'll be a
righty.
lot of fun. But Stephanie is, if you're not subscribed to the Sean and Steph channel, make sure you subscribe to the Sean and Steph channel as well. And when you come down here to Walt Disney World, you will probably see her work in various areas around the park. She's an amazing, amazing artist. Or on Disney Cruise Line. Her work is on Disney Cruise Line as well. So, but that's such a great story. And Steph, I'm so happy to see you here tonight. Thanks so much for joining in. Folks, I'll remind you, I'm Walter, your independent travel advisor. If you're new to the channel, we invite you to subscribe, share, like. We invite you to subscribe to The Joy of Cruising, his podcast. You can find the books on Amazon. He's even here on YouTube. Be sure to support Paul because he's doing an amazing job bringing awesome stories to all of us. And that's what we're talking about tonight. The stories that go with the joy of cruising. And what a great title. I mean, it just makes you feel good thinking about it. So thank you, Paul, for everything you do. It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
So moving on to story number 3. I love this. A modern day fairy tale.
Yes, it really was a modern day fairy tale. So this is Elizabeth, and what you're looking at is Elizabeth's portrait.
Uh-oh. Wait, where'd you go, Paul? Come back, Paul.
Okay, there I am.
There you are.
What you're looking at is on the wall is Elizabeth's portrait. That is on the wall of Independence of the Seas.
What?
And Elizabeth is standing next to her portrait when she had an occasion, I think, to visit Independence on its 10-year anniversary. But Elizabeth was at the time, and the reason her picture's hanging on the wall is she's the godmother of Independence of the Seas. And the reason I say it's a modern day fairy tale, so Elizabeth was a retired, at the time, was a retired teacher, and she ran a farm, and the farm did a lot of kind of work for the community, charitable work. There were people with learning disabilities who worked there. There were veterans who were having difficulty readjusting back to civilian life. So she ran this farm to help members of the community who were in need. Unbeknownst to her, she was entered into a contest. Royal Caribbean was introducing a new ship that was going to be home based in Southampton, called Independence of the Seas. And, they wanted, unlike most godmothers who are celebrities or royalty or singers, they wanted someone who had done special things for the community.
Oh, wow.
So Elizabeth got entered into this contest. She received a phone call from Royal Caribbean one day. She thought it was a joke. She says, "Is this like a reality show? Am I being pranked?" But to make a long story short, Elizabeth and some other finalists were invited to the shipyard for the sign over of independence to Royal Caribbean. They had to get a ball gown and all that. Make a long story short, she gets home, she gets a phone call. Again, it's Royal Caribbean. They say, all of the candidates were great, but your story was just extra special. You're going to be the new godmother of Independence of the Seas.
Wow.
So this was UK's first non-celebrity, non-royal godmother. And they told her, get ready because your phone's about to ring off the hook, because it was a big media event, and it certainly did. And so I just thought it was such a wonderful story. And which is why I called it a modern day fairy tale.
I love that. That is so cool. And I wonder if that was like the first of kind of a trend. We've seen some of the other cruise lines do that as well, where they look for just a regular citizen who deserves to be the godmother. So I love that.
Yeah,
I love that so much.
It's the first that I know of. I know one cruise line, they wanted godmother they wanted to honor or represent breast cancer. So the
Oh,
godmother were employees who either had breast cancer or their mothers had breast cancer.
oh,
So it was
wow.
it was sort of a collective of
Oh,
women who were godmothers. So yeah, you're right. Other cruise lines have done things like that. So
that
yeah,
is so much.
I wrote about Elizabeth in my first book, The Joy of Cruising, and
Mm-hmm.
and of course it was an easy decision to ask her to
Oh,
be on the Joy of Cruising podcast.
absolutely.
It was an easy. It's been an easy decision to ask all of the people in the books
I
to be
bet.
on the Joy of Cruising podcast because I wrote about them because they had fascinating stories. So, and that's the whole theme of the podcast. Passionate cruisers with fascinating stories. And by the way,
Absolutely.
going back to Elizabeth real quick,
Hmm.
when she broke the bottle on Independence and then went on
Yeah.
that sailing, that was the first time she had ever sailed on a cruise ship.
What? On her own cruise ship.
Yep, yep.
That is phenomenal. I love it. Aaron was asking, I don't know if you want to go into all the cruise lines you've been on, but do you at least have a favorite of all the cruise lines you've sailed so far?
I can tell you the two cruise lines that I haven't sailed, which kind of hard to believe because they're so popular, but I have them booked. Uh, uh, One is Holland America line,
Wow.
and the other is Princess Cruises. Yeah, yeah.
What?
So I've
What?
been on pretty much everything else. NCL, Disney,
Sure.
Royal Caribbean,
See,
Carnival,
Holland,
now
I can
Virgin.
understand, but most people get on Princess at least. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm booked on Princess on the Sun Princess uh,
No
for
way.
April. Yep, and I'm booked
Nice.
on Holland for the Rotterdam
Oh, nice
going
ship.
going to the Panama Canal. So
Nice.
to answer the question, I have a favorite. I have a favorite ship,
Hmm.
and I actually have a new favorite cruise line. My
Oh.
favorite my favorite ship is Celebrity Beyond.
Oh, wow.
Now,
Good choice.
now that may change because I'm booked in a few months on Celebrity Ascent, which
Ah,
as the new sister, I'm sure it's everything beyond is maybe a little bit better.
sure.
Uh,
Sure.
my new favorite line is Virgin.
Really? What?
Yes, yes,
Wow. So what won you over?
yeah. They won me over. I'm booked solid through 25. Some people
Wow.
know I'm on a quest to check a whole lot of things off my bucket list. So even
Yeah.
Holland America, I've never been on Holland, so that's a bucket list item.
There
Plus,
you go.
it's Panama Canal, that's a bucket list item. Uh, so some bucket list items are just first time on a line, and others are like really, like my last cruise is my first transatlantic. My next
Nice.
cruise is my first river cruise. So anyway,
Nice.
I'm on this bucket list checking journey.
I
So
love it.
I'm booked through 25, but I have nothing booked for 26. I would say unless there's something special that comes up, I'm 99% sure my first cruise in 26 will be Virgin Voyages.
Nice. So what
So
what
so
what what
so
what
I
what
will book it the next time I can book it.
what maybe just one or two things. What really impressed you? Obviously something really got you during that transatlantic.
I was to use a word, I was predisposed to fall in love with Virgin before I got on it because I had researched it so much. And Walter, I had literally never ever come across a bad review. Never.
Hmm.
Um, you know, maybe a complaint here or there, but I'm talking about a bad review. I've never come
Yeah.
across a cruise line where, and I'm sure they exist. Maybe I didn't want to find them, but I never came across a bad review. The worst thing I ever heard about Virgin, someone just asked a question about it, was that gentleman I ran into on day two who said to me, "It's a once and done." I've
Hmm.
never heard those words used with Virgin Voyages before. So to answer your question, what won me over? I was close to being won over before I got on the ship, and then
Oh,
when I got on the ship, it's just everything was perfect. You know,
wow.
uh,
Wow.
to me, I call it a playground for adults.
Yeah. Yeah. A summer camp for adults is what I call it. It's just so much
Yeah,
fun. It's so much fun.
yep,
And
yep,
that
yep.
and that kind of lead, I'm going to jump over to number 5 for a second because you just kind of led right into this. I think this is so fabulous. I think the first interview of a Virgin Voyages diva ever. And Virgin is well known for having divas.
Yeah, I think I when I interviewed the diva for Scarlet Lady, Dixie
Yeah.
Crystals, um, I just
Dixie
made a
Crystals.
comment.
Nice.
Yeah, I just made a comment. And that interview, by the way, that will be airing. What's today? Thursday. That will be airing Monday.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, that will be airing Monday. But I kind of offhandedly said, I think this is, I don't know of anyone else who has interviewed a diva. And she said, Dixie Crystal said to me, I researched it. You're the first. Uh, so, I believe I am. I may be wrong. And if I'm wrong, text me and get me straight, or maybe come on the show. But yeah, that interview was such fun. Uh, uh, you know, she is much more than the character that she plays.
Mm.
Really, really had an insightful conversation. She's very much into doing the right thing for the community. She's big in voting.
Mm.
Talks a lot about that. She
Wow.
has quite a life beyond Virgin. She
Wow.
actually uh, auditioned for Virgin. They offered it to her, and she turned it down because
Oh,
she just
wow.
had, she said she had other stuff at the time they wanted her to do things, but they came
Wow.
back to her. So I'm not surprised. She probably knocked them out in the audition because
Mm.
she can sing. I
Wow.
didn't expect that. I just expected her to be sort of a, you know, uh, uh, add some levity, some
Sure.
double entendres, things like
Sure.
that. But then
Sure.
she melted out a song, and I was like, oh my goodness. So,
Wow. Well, so far we've really only had a woman named Carlos 3 times, and Carlos. What was really interesting was we had dinner with Carlos in Gun Bay, but without realizing it, because Carlos was her alter ego, and
okay.
we had this lovely dinner. Chatting about theater and things like that. I never clicked it. Rebecca said she started to recognize the voice as the conversation went on. And that night we saw a cabaret show. And as soon as she started to sing, I went, oh my God, we had dinner with Carlos. It was awesome.
I was on Instagram today, actually, and Dixie Crystals does a live thing, and she's in her alter ego.
Mm.
And how do I say this, Walter? It was kind of tough for me, because the whole time that I was talking to her, I was envisioning Dixie Crystals. I'm trying to
Right.
remember. I'm trying to remember. Did she have her camera on? She did. She did. But yeah, this whole video today was her alter
Wow.
ego, and
Yeah.
it was kind of jarring.
Yeah, Carlos does that from time to time too, and it is like, wait a minute, okay, but yeah, they are absolutely lovely. That's one of the things I do love about Virgin Voyages is the diva. For those who have never sailed Virgin Voyages, there is not a cruise director, there's not a cruise director staff, there's a happenings cast of 11 or 13 people, of which the diva is one. So yeah, you got to get on Virgin and try it out. That's so cool. I can't wait to hear that. Why don't we talk about the marathoner? That was the first story I read, and I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Marathoner of the Seas, a multi-layered tale of an amazing man.
Uh, here's what first drew me to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the first book. In fact, he was the first chapter in the
The first
first book.
chapter. Yeah.
And so I called the name of that chapter was Marathoner of the Seas. So you know there's a Royal Caribbean connection. So here's what he's kind of known for. But he's so much more than what he's kind of known for. so he's a marathoner. Okay, he's a runner. He runs marathons all over the world. In one of my earlier posts, I have calculated how many miles he's run. It's some crazy number, and I don't want to get it wrong. So you'll have to check it out for yourself. But his thing is, he runs a marathon distance on every Royal Caribbean ship. And the last I heard, he's up into the 30s.
Wow.
And it's a legitimate marathon distance. So, what's that? 26.2 miles. The times, I wrote about his times in the book. The times are unbelievable. I'm sure you have some competitive runners listening, and his time, I doubt you have any marathon runners who would beat the times that he posts on the ship. So you can imagine what kind of times he posts off the ship. But it's just an amazing story, Walter. It's just so, like I said, it's so many layers to it. I'll try to say as much as I can in just a few minutes. The way he starts, the way his story starts is he has no desire to go on a cruise. However, his wife cruises, and she keeps begging him to go on a cruise. So his wife, at the time, his wife cruised, and she kept begging him to go on a cruise. And finally, he gave her he made a deal with her. He said, I will go on the cruise with you if you allow me to run a marathon distance when we go. And so that was, that made them both happy.
Sounds fair.
And he did that. And as most people, when they take their first cruise, they fall in love with cruising. Mm-hmm. And Joe, his name is Joe Church. I don't know if I even said his name. Joe fell in love with cruising. And so now, every time she went, he went with her. But he had to run his marathon distance. And she was into Royal Caribbean. So that became his stick, to run a marathon. And I mean, some amazing stories. He talks about a marathon he ran in Alaska into a driving snowstorm.
That was nuts.
Yeah. So he's got all kind of stories. Sadly, his wife dies in the story. There's so much more to his story. He ends up, I think he's 100 days away from the Tokyo Marathon, and of the major marathons he has run, I think that was one of the only ones. He's run the New York Marathon and all that. and
Wow.
he had a series of heart attacks
Oh,
uh,
wow.
uh, about 100 days from the Tokyo Marathon.
Oh, wow.
But just to finish the story, he did participate in the Tokyo Marathon.
Wow. Wow.
Now he said he walked most of the marathon, but he
Right.
did participate. So,
Wow.
but it's just an unbelievable story. And let me just say, I'm only touching on I'm touching on the tip of the iceberg.
He is. And folks, when you hear him say marathon distance, he means actually run a marathon, like one run as a marathon. It's not a marathon distance over the length of the cruise. He goes out at
Oh,
like 1 in the
oh no,
morning, 2 in the morning to
yeah,
start.
yeah,
And it's one run, people, just one run of a
yeah,
marathon.
yeah. He actually runs far more than a marathon during a cruise. You know,
Mhm.
he runs every day, but he competitively runs a
A
marathon
marathon. Yeah. Wow.
or a marathon distance.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if he'd ever get on Virgin and try that running track. You know, they got that dedicated running track up there. That'd be
Yeah,
interesting.
we actually walked it. My wife made me go up there.
It's a great spot to
But
get that
no,
picture, just like Dixie.
no, no, Joe is I don't think he's ever been on another line besides
Hmm.
Royal Caribbean.
Yeah, well, it's a good. They got nice big ships, big running tracks, so it kind of makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Oh, look at Stephanie. She's good at marathons too, as long as it's the buffet. Love it, Steph. Thank you. Oh my goodness, Paul, we've almost talked for an hour already. But you know what? I definitely want to bring this person in because I think she revolutionized cruising. You've already talked about two of her ships already that she helped introduce to the world. Lisa from Celebrity. My favorite ship is hers as well, and you wear that as a badge of honor.
Yes, yes. So that's Lisa Ludolph Perlo to the right. She is the former president of Celebrity Cruise Lines, and she was the
Hmm.
president when the Edge class was introduced.
Hmm.
And so my favorite ship is a ship in the Edge class called Celebrity Beyond. And so, in meeting in my conversation with Lisa, I mentioned that, and she says that's her favorite ship, and I'm talking about of all time, of all lines. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
she says that's her favorite ship as well. So so I like to find ways. I participate in a lot of Facebook groups.
Hmm.
So on the celebrity group, they might say, "What's your favorite celebrity ship?" And I
Right,
like to
right.
say, "My favorite celebrity ship is Celebrity Beyond," and it's also the former CEOs of Celebrity. I know because I asked her. So that's what I
Yeah,
mean when I say I wear it as a badge of honor. But
yeah.
but we shall see. Because as I said, the ascent's coming up, and then I'm hearing unbelievable things about Sun Princess. So we'll see if
Oh, yeah.
Beyond remains my favorite ship.
We'll have to talk to you about Sun Princess because I got a big group of about 40 of us going in October on the Sun Princess. So, and of course, Alex asked the question that everybody gets when you go on the Celebrity Beyond. Did you meet Captain Kate?
No, no. When I went on Beyond, her leave had just started.
Oh, yeah. So you went on when she was 3 months off.
Yeah, yeah. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. And
yeah,
Betty is getting on
when
Virgin
I
tomorrow.
when I
Oh,
I'm sorry, when I talk about people who I have not had on the show yet, um, I have a list,
yeah.
and Captain Kate is one of those at the top of the list.
You think Lisa would be able to help you with that? I mean, she was the one who basically encouraged Captain Kate to become a captain. So you think
Yeah,
Lisa would
yeah,
have the in on that, right?
yeah. Well, I'm working on it.
You're
I
working
reached
on it.
out. Yeah, I reached out to her.
Good. And Aaron's actually got, a very popular question. I don't know if you had an infinite balcony, but what are your thoughts on the infinite balcony?
Yeah, I had an infinite balcony, and I'm okay with it because I didn't go there uh, expecting it to be a balcony, a regular balcony, and it's not.
Hmm.
Um, so if you're going to go there and compare it directly to a veranda, it's not. I liked it, but I liked it for what it was.
Hmm.
I understood. No, this is not a balcony. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't stress over it. You know, uh, I would rather a traditional balcony, but it was nice. It served a slightly different purpose.
Hmm. Yeah, we saw them on the Icon of the Seas when we were on there, and in a lot of ways, I actually kind of preferred it because it made the room so much bigger. And when you think about the
Right.
amount of time you actually stand out on the balcony or sit out on the balcony versus all the time that you might sit in what's essentially a porch,
Yeah.
I actually really liked it. I liked that it extended the room out. Now, the only complaint that I've really heard that I wasn't a part of is sometimes it can get hot if the sun is beating right in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, you're right. It's if you go in expecting a balcony, you will be disappointed. But if you go in knowing that it's essentially a cabana, then it's going to work well.
Yeah. Actually,
There's a,
on my I mentioned the river cruise that's coming up.
yeah.
That's an interesting design because we have our room has a traditional balcony, and then right next to it, essentially an infinite balcony.
Yeah. Yeah. You got the French balcony, right? It just slides open.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. I kind of like that. I kind of wish a celebrity had done that because then you got that vertical rather than the
Hmm.
horizontal. But I guess they kind of did it because of the railing, because the
Yeah,
glass kind of turns into the railing. But yeah, Aaron's saying that infinite balcony seemed perfect for Alaska, and that would be a fabulous place because you do wake up to that floor to ceiling glass, which is absolutely beautiful
yep, yep.
out there. So, man, Paul, are you okay? It's 9 o'clock Eastern time. Can we do? You got two more stories here. You want to talk
I,
about them?
I am fine. I can talk cruising
I know,
all
me
night.
too. Well, I love this lead in you gave me for this person. You said this person will be in textbooks someday, except in Florida. I just love the lead in. What's the story here, Paul?
So this is Patricia Yarmrow, and she is an entrepreneur that I think I think she should be in textbooks someday. So she is the founder of what's known as Festival at Sea. So Festival
Okay.
at Sea, every year they run a full ship charter. Every year
Hmm.
except the very first year, which was 35 years ago,
Okay.
they run a full ship charter of what's known as an African American cultural cruise.
Oh, wow.
And for 35 years in a row, now it only runs
Wow.
one time a year, but for
Sure.
35 years in a row, she has run a sold out cruise.
Wow. Wow.
And when I say sold out, like this Festival at Sea for 24, they're getting ready to cruise in July.
Okay.
It went on sale, uh, you know, maybe August of last year, or
Uh-huh.
late July of last year, after last year's version ended. It was sold out in an hour.
Wow. Holy
Now,
cow.
now, now, to be fair, or to be clear, there's a day at the end of the current year's sailing where they open up ticket sales. So
Sure.
when everyone gets off the ship, it's probably 60%, 70% sold for next year. But anyway,
Still.
she runs
Wow.
Festival at Sea, and then they have an affiliated brand called Friends of Festival at Sea.
Oh,
So
wow.
what Friends of Festival at Sea does is they do very, very high end luxury cruises to exotic destinations.
Oh,
So
nice.
so Regent Seven Seas, uh,
Hmm.
Silver Seas, those kind of lines. Now they don't
Sure.
do most of the time. They'll do a full ship charter on those. They'll
Sure.
take a group of maybe 200, 250. However, the river cruise that I keep referring to, that is a full ship charter. So they are doing
Oh,
that.
nice.
Friends of Festival C is doing it. That's a full ship charter because there's only 150 people on it.
Exactly.
Um, so that's their luxury cruise this year. Next year
Nice.
they got one going to like Singapore, all Far East stuff,
Oh,
and
nice.
I
That's amazing.
really wanted to go, but it was like $30,000. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
can't
Well,
can't 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 do it. Even this river cruise is this is the by far the most I've ever spent on a cruise. It is great. I mean, it's a 7-day river cruise in on the Rhone,
nice.
and then we get on a high speed train to Paris, and we spend
Nice.
3 days in Paris on like a
Oh,
Black
wow.
History tour. So yeah,
Wow.
that's
Oh, that.
I said she'll be in textbook someday. She's a
I
great
love it.
entrepreneur. The
I,
accepting Florida part was kind of a that was kind of me taking a jab at Florida.
I, I live here. I get it. I totally get it. Yep. 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 That's
Yeah,
phenomenal.
I
That's
I used to
phenomenal.
live there, so
Yeah, yeah. I haven't gotten to her story yet. So now I've got to go back and listen to her story. That is, or read her story. That is phenomenal. I love it. And
yeah,
then,
she was one that I wrote about in the first book. I went on Festival at Sea. So I wrote about it in the first book,
mm,
and
that's
then she's been
phenomenal.
on the pod. Let me just tell you a real quick story about my
Please,
my
please.
my one sailing on Festival at Sea. So we got on. It was that year. It was on the Celebrity Equinox. I think it was
Great ship.
2018 before the pandemic. And so
Okay.
I sat next to a gentleman in the buffet. Just got on the ship, so I just struck up a conversation with him.
Sure.
Uh, and so I said, "Well, how many times have you been on Festival C?" And he told me 15. So I'm
Wow.
thinking, "Oh my goodness, 15 times on this one cruise. This means that." And at the time, I was writing my book, my first book. And
Right.
being an unknown, it was hard to like come up with subjects,
Sure.
with features. And so
Sure.
when he told me 15, I'm thinking, oh wow, this is probably somebody who's been on 100 cruises. So I said 15. I said, wow, how many cruises have you been on altogether? He said 15. So that shows you how loyal customers are on to her festival at sea. But that loyalty, high,
Phenomenal.
very very high loyalty, is
Yeah.
true of all themed cruises. Because
That is
it's
phenomenal.
like it's two it's you have people who are passionate about the theme and
Yep.
people who are passionate about cruising. I mean that's a formula for a great time.
Exactly. As Alex just said, just keep cruising, just keep cruising, 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 cruise. Just be like Dory. That's all. Paul, I think we're going to jump into the speed round because we have definitely gone over here. And I thank you all for staying with us and enjoying a little extended cruise chat live, because if we get Paul and I going, we're going to be here till midnight. No problem. Um, But let's do a little speed round to kind of wrap up the evening. This has been a great conversation, Paul. I'm so thankful for you coming on. I'm so thankful for everything you do. It's so
Thank you.
cool. All these stories that you bring out, and just to hear a different side, to see a different side. Like the interview with Stephanie is phenomenal because it's a lot of things that maybe people haven't heard before. And you got Dom and Tom and all these folks and Lisa. Folks, if you're not subscribed and you haven't been reading the books, there's just some really interesting stories in there that go beyond just here's my favorite food and here's the best ship. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting personal stories, and you do a nice job digging down deep into the person. You really do a great job, Paul. So thank you. So you've already said that your favorite ship. So here we go. What's your favorite itinerary so far?
Oh, that's an easy one. I went on almost a trans-Pacific from Hawaii to Alaska.
Nice. Stephanie did that too.
Oh, we were on the same ship.
Oh, that's right. You met her on that ship.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So that was the Norwegian Spirit. You basically did a fire and ice cruise. You went around Hawaii and then up to Alaska. Yep. That wins.
Yep.
Your favorite port or destination so far?
I look at the ports in Alaska collectively, so I would say just Alaska. Really on that cruise. I mean, you got 5 stops, something like 5 stops in Hawaii, something like 5 stops in Alaska.
Yeah,
it's really hard. It's hard. Almost any of those ports would be my favorite port.
Yes. Yeah. Like Stephanie just said, everyone should do that. She came back talking about that cruise so much. And I really want to do it. Now it's hard to do it because the Spirit keeps getting chartered. Your best or your favorite ship cabin so far? So you've been on a lot of different ships. I'm kind of curious. It's like one cabin or cabin style stood out for you?
The best cabin, it was very interesting. I took my extended family on a cruise on Anthem of the Seas, and so my daughter and her husband and my grandkids were in one cabin, and then my wife and my other daughter in another cabin. They were identical cabins on the opposite ends of like the top 3 levels of Anthem.
Okay.
So it was like the size of the cabin was like 2.5 times the size of a normal cabin.
Oh wow!
Had a huge curved window with the sill that you could sit in. So I have photos of my granddaughter and my daughter, sitting in the sill. And there's only about 6 of them on. I guess they're on all Quantum class ships. But again, they're on the exact opposite ends of the ship. Now, obviously, if you get them, you have to be willing to be in the front, of the ship. And some people don't like that. I've never had an issue with being in the front of the ship, but some people, they always stick to the middle. So that was, and it wasn't a suite or anything. It was just an extra large ocean view.
How about that? And I know exactly what you're talking about, way up in the front corners. And that's the thing, folks, everybody's like, I just want to be in the middle. Well, some of the bigger cabins are actually at the extremities just because of the way the ship is shaped. And they're like, well, we can't really make 2 cabins here, so we're going to make a big one. And you can get some really nice cabins without paying for a suite. Good call. Okay. This is not going to be controversial at all. Your best meal, I suppose maybe your favorite meal, and I'm not talking comfort food. We'll get to comfort food in a second, but what do you think has been your best meal on a ship so far?
That one is also easy. It was on Celebrity Beyond, a restaurant called Le Voyage by Daniel Villard. If you, for those of you who never heard of Daniel Ballard, just Google him, and you'll see why. Uh, I have said, Walter, again, I like to get on various Facebook groups. That wasn't just my best meal at sea. That was my best meal, period.
Wow. Wow.
So,
Wow. That's amazing. For me, it was still until I go there, probably. But Remy on the Disney Fantasy is still my favorite. And then what about comfort food? What's your favorite? I definitely got one, but what's your favorite comfort food that you've had or casual food?
I love Guy's Burgers. And I tell you, I went on MSC, did a podcast about MSC. I've actually called it a once and done, although the podcast wasn't all negative, but for me, it's a once and done for a certain reason. However, I found their pizza to easily be the best at sea.
It's very good pizza.
Yeah. You know what? I found to be the second best. Now everyone keeps telling me about Princess Pizza, so I'm reserving judgment until I go on Princess. But for right now, the second best pizza I found to be Virgin.
Virgin. Yeah, all the way. Yeah.
They don't have like slices sitting under a heat lamp. Every pizza is cooked to order.
Yeah.
Every pizza.
Yep. Even the sliced pizza out by the pool, they cook it to order. It's really, really good. And surprisingly, the pizza on the Carnival Mardi Gras was really good too. My favorite comfort food though was Shack Chicken on Carnival.
Well, that's right. That's right up there. That's right.
Yeah.
In fact, I might even put that a little bit ahead of Guys. Guys is not as good now as it used to be.
Yes,
but then that's true.
Agree with that.
That's true almost of all complimentary food.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. But I would put Shack Chicken ahead of Chick-fil-A, and I lived in Atlanta for like 27 years. So
yeah,
all right.
I would agree with you there.
All right, best dessert or ice cream so far?
The best. So there's free and there's paid. The best paid was gelato on MSC.
Nice.
For a cruise line that I've called once and done, there were about three things on MSC that were among the very best. Now, the paid gelato I just mentioned. I mentioned the pizza. And then the third thing is the private island. So, they got a lot going for them, but they need to do it. They need a lot of work. But anyway, so that's my my paid dessert.
Okay.
Best free dessert, Virgin Voyages. Lick me till I scream. Oh no. I just said it. I just said it the way they want you to say it. Lick me till ice cream.
See? Love it.
But yeah, that was some premium ice cream, better than any ice cream I've tasted on any other lines, and they're very inventive with their flavors. Key lime pie, strawberry milkshake, rum raisin that tastes like it will get you a buzz. So pistachio. I'm not even a big pistachio eater, but I tried every flavor.
That's awesome. Well, you had 14 days for crying out loud. Come on.
Yep.
I think the best dessert I've ever had, and Stephanie can probably back me up on this one. Thanksgiving, we were on the Valiant Lady. They essentially made a homemade Snickers bar that was just beyond belief with how rich this little tiny dessert was. And then on Sky Princess, they had authentic gelato. It's absolutely freaking amazing. Amazing.
And you know one.
You thought one?
One dessert I forgot to mention. Key lime pies. This is very specific. Key lime pie at Royal Caribbean's Chops.
Oh, okay. I haven't had that one.
Yeah, yeah. It's a key lime pie. Unlike, and I spent 9 years in Florida, but
Okay.
it's a key lime pie unlike any I've ever had. It's like a meringue key lime pie.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And you keep talking about MSC. On the seaside, I had the best affogato I've ever had anywhere, which is, espresso with ice cream.
Hmm.
Unbelievable. And then last, I saved the best for last. What is the best cocktail you've had so far?
Uh, well, I'll tell you my go-tos. I have two frozen go-tos and two regular go-tos. So my
All
frozen
right.
go-tos is your good old Miami Vice, pina colada and strawberry daiquiri.
There you
And
go.
the other one is BBC, which is Bailey's Banana Colada. One
Okay.
thing I'm noticing on last couple of lines I've been on, they're moving to this premix pina coladas, these machines,
Yeah.
and premix strawberry daiquiri. I like it from scratch.
Yes.
Those
Yes.
have a little bit of an aftertaste to them, to me.
They're a little
Um,
too sweet.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, those are my two. Those are my frozen drinks.
All right.
My non-frozen drinks are a painkiller, uh, and a sidecar.
Oh, sidecar. Oh, okay. I haven't had one of those in a very long time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow. For me, it's the old fashioned. I always test every cruise ship with an old fashioned, and world class bar on Celebrity to me still makes the best one. Although Elliot on the Sky Princess made a traditional one where he muddled the sugar into the
Hmm.
whiskey. That was absolutely freaking amazing. So, yeah, see, Stephanie's reminding me she ordered a second one of those Snickers bars on the Valiant Lady. It was absolutely amazing. So, well, Paul, this has been so much fun to be able to interview you instead and actually hear you talk for a change. So many great stories.
Well, this is fun for me, as those listeners of the podcast know. I can talk about cruising. That's all I do.
Right? Literally.
That is that is my life.
That is
Talking
your
about
life.
cruising when I am not cruising.
Your life is either cruising or talking about cruising. It's one or the other.
There you go.
And
There you
sometimes
go.
both at the same time.
Yep. Yep.
And folks, Where's Walter Travel is a very proud travel partner of the Joy of Cruising and also Sean and Steph. And when you tell us that you were referred by the Joy of Cruising, you help to support Paul and everything that he's doing. We're very, very proud of our affiliation with you, and we're very proud that you would allow us to be your partner. We're having so much fun together. I can't wait till we cruise together. You know, we got this thing called the Margaritaville Islander that we're going on next month. You should come on down. Get your
That's a
flip flop.
new Margaritaville.
Yeah. All new company, all new everything. You know, this is the cruise line I refuse to sell until now.
Okay.
So I already booked somebody on it. That's how confident I am in this new ship. I haven't even gone on it yet. I already booked somebody. So, but Paul, this has been amazing. Hey guys, thank you so much. Hey, Alex, appreciate the kind words. Stephanie, appreciate the kind words. Everybody, really appreciate you all tuning in on a Thursday evening. Make sure you go to joyofcruising.net. That is Paul's website. You can find his books on Amazon. You can find the Joy of Cruising podcast wherever your favorite podcasts are. We invite you to subscribe, like, and share this channel. And of course, if we can help you in any way with any of your travels, our services are 100% free. Just go to where'swaltertravel.com or just hit those links in the description. We will be more than happy to help out. So, Paul, again, thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing some absolutely freaking amazing stories.
You're welcome. And this was a whole lot of fun. And by the way, when I shared those stories, I could have easily have shared Walter's story. So if you haven't listened to Walter's episode, you got to listen because he's got quite a backstory.
It's just a weird little turn to the left that happened in my career a couple of times there. So yeah. Thank you for that. That was definitely weird listening to that one back, but that was a great show. I thank you so much for doing that. And I cannot wait until we get a chance to break bread or lift a glass together.
I can't either.
All right. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Every Thursday night, we love to bring on some of our travel partners and interesting stories like Paul's tonight. And of course, every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m., we're live answering your questions on TikTok, YouTube, everything at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So until the next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Paul, thank you again for joining us tonight.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.